How have you learned about this field? Through classes, readings, seminars, work, or other experiences or conversations with people already in the field. So again, classwork is going to always be a great indicator, especially how well you do in those classes. Sometimes you don't always do well at the very beginning because you're just really unsure about what it is you really want to do, even though you are in it and you just continue in it. But once you really get a good understanding of this is the thing for me, you should be pulling A's and A minuses in your major, in your classes. So the more the classes you take, and the better you do in those classes should also reinforce your conviction. The readings, what are some readings are you reading up in the field? Because it's theory plus practice, right? Theory plus application. And so if this is something that is interesting, you should be reading articles, you should be reading journal articles, you should be taking seminars, you should also be working, whether it's volunteer or paid. And then conversations with people. You should always think about conducting an informational interview with someone who's already in the field because they're going to tell you really what to expect. I always tell my students who want to get into the same fields as their parents, take your parent out on some sort of cafe stop or something like that. Buy them a coffee and let them talk about their job. And you're going to see more in their heart and in their minds about their job and how they think about their job and their field just in that coffee stop alone. Go out and go on a hike with them or something like that, and you'll see if they really love their field. They may complain like all people complain about their jobs, but if they say I can't do without this job, I got to have it. I have to, like for me, teaching makes me sane. It keeps me sane, right? I have to have teaching. I will be lost without it. Doesn't mean that I don't have another life. Doesn't mean that I don't have other things that I'm interested in. But it does make a big difference that I have to be responsible for souls in the classroom, that I have to be responsible for people who are making transitions in life, which I have struggled with my own self making transitions in life. And I usually teach where I failed or where I struggled. And so it makes a big difference when you have engaged the field and somehow had conversations with people and really learned about it so that it is clear when you are writing a personal statement. If you have worked a lot during your college years, what have you learned? So that's leadership or managerial skills. And how has that work contributed to your growth? So not all, there's always likely an opportunity to take on a leadership role, but then sometimes it's not always a good idea to take on a leadership role if you're not ready. And there's nothing wrong with not being ready for something at that moment. Sometimes you just have to say no to it. There have been some opportunities that folks have wanted me to take on a leadership role, but I wasn't ready. But then there was an opportunity that they asked me to do, and I took it without really thinking. And it turned out that I really wasn't ready, and I ended up quitting it before my time. And that one opportunity is something that I regret to this day. But I now know I have learned from it not to take on something that I haven't prepared for. That was my learning experience. That was my insight. Because even if someone sort of prompts you to take on a responsibility, if you prepared for it in some kind of way, for example, through classes, reading, seminars, work, or other experiences or conversations with people, you may start it afraid, but you will tap into your knowledge base and think about it and then take the first step and keep going after that. When you don't have anything at all in your knowledge base, that's what makes it harder to be effective. That's why you have a lot of people who take on roles all the time. They don't have anything in their knowledge base and they think they are being effective and productive, but they're really messing things up. It doesn't look like that because it looks like success in the moment, and everyone liking them looks like validation, but it really isn't success, and it's going to eventually take a toll on the people around them as well as that person, and then it's going to affect them negatively. So it's much better to make sure that you have what you need. Go through the preparation of learning new knowledge before you take on a new responsibility. And that's what leadership or managerial skills mean here. that what have you learned? And you could always talk about the fact that you took on something and you missed the opportunity to learn from it, and then later when you had another opportunity to take on that leadership role, you decided to learn first and then take on the role later. So that's part of your growth process. And then what are your career goals? So career goals, it's hard for you to know what they are if you don't know the field and the general nature of the field. And we're going to get into a sample personal statement later that really reveals that the writer took some time to research the field before he or she wrote that particular personal statement. And so career goals, you can find a lot of that information, and we'll go over that through the major department site. You can talk with someone who's in the field, and you can get a lot of information from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we will talk about that as well. But you do want to have some idea about your industry, about the field itself. So if you're going into the accounting field and you want to become an accountant, what type of accountant? Is that a general accountant, a staff accountant, a financial accountant, a tax accountant, cost accountant, managerial accounting? What kind of accountant do you want to be? What industry? Is it nonprofit? Is it for-profit? Is it government-based, right? Where do you envision yourself? And do you want to get into private practice? Do you want to get into consulting? Do you want to work with celebrities, right? So these are questions that you want to think about. And these are the questions that we don't always address because we are afraid to say what we really want. So we just hide it up under some rug. But if you know, like I know this one actor, his name is Laz Alonso. He knew from the time he was young that he wanted to become an actor, and you see him as an actor. So he allocated all of his efforts towards acting and going out for roles and then acting in those roles and maybe taking some classes here and there and getting into major roles. And so you don't see him really doing too much of anything else other than his regular volunteering and philanthropy or something like that, right? But that was his career goal, and he knew that way before he went to college. And so the things that we are often afraid to say, we need to just go on ahead and say them, put it down on paper or put it on a wall or something like that, and begin just thinking about it, at least reflecting on it, and taking the first step to allocate your effort towards accomplishing the first level. So career goals, I do believe you have some idea. I think you just often are afraid to say them because, I don't know, you don't want to offend a parent, you don't want to offend a teacher, you don't want to offend a friend or something like that. The person who says, girl, you can't do all that, leave that alone. Or the guy who says, oh, you ain't got to worry about that, just go get a simple job. That's the person that you got to be careful about. Always be careful about, because they're going to hinder your process. And whether or not you're supposed to do that thing, it is still your process.